Welcome to Electric Evolution with Liz Allan. This podcast is about the journey to a more sustainable future in order for us to be able to do our bit to achieve net zero. I'll be discussing a variety of topics with experts in their field in order to educate and increase our knowledge of clean energy, electric vehicles and the electric vehicle infrastructure. So whether you're an individual wanting to make a difference at home, a small business or a corporate, this podcast is just for you. On today's episode, I have got with me Dan Caesar. Now, he is the launch CEO of Electric Vehicles UK, and you'll probably know him more about for this one, but the other one is amazing as well. So CEO and presenter of Fully Charged. Dan, thank you ever so much for joining me today. It's really lovely to see you.
It's a pleasure to see you. How are you?
I'm all right. Yeah, good for a Friday. For those of you who don't know what day I'm recording on, because it doesn't make any difference, it's a Friday morning. But yeah, brilliant to see you. So let's have a chat about where all of this work. You do some amazing things with Fully Charged and working with Robert Llewellyn and, all the stuff that you've done. Can we start from grassroots and talk about where you came into the sector, why, and what was it that you did before?
Well, unfortunately, when you get older, I could talk about this for quite a long time, so I'll try and keep it relatively short and interesting, hopefully. I mean, I basically started life in the publishing business, so I was old enough to work on magazines. Do you remember them? And
of course I do.
Actually...
56 love, yeah, I do.
And I loved it. Actually, I started as a publisher, so I was running the commercial side of the magazine and the content side of the magazine as well. And I guess what I'm doing now is not actually that dissimilar. It's just in digital form, isn't it? And after a few years, I was thinking I need something with more purpose. I was working in sectors that didn't really interest me very much. And then actually I got to work in gas safety. So I got to work in, like a lot of us did, started in sort of the energy industry, in fossil fuels, and I worked for the gas safety watchdog, which was pretty well known back in the day. It was called Corgi, and I was the director of communications. And it totally opened my eyes to the fact that work is, about meaning. If you're lucky enough to have a job that gives you meaning. And I was at that time working on campaigning with government and communicating the dangers of carbon monoxide poisoning, which is obviously a very serious issue. I met families who'd lost people to carbon monoxide poisoning. Obviously was interested as a business in making sure boilers were safe and things like that. And it meant something, and it was an important job. But very, very quickly I became aware of heat pumps and solar thermal in particular, solar PV, latterly batteries, and I became very, very aware that this was going to be the next big thing. There was going to be a big shift away from fossil fuels, hopefully, towards electrification. And I thought that was fantastic, not only because I like technology and I found that interesting, but also because better technology is actually not only better from an efficiency standpoint, but also safer as well. So carbon monoxide poisoning could be a thing of the past with, if we have heat pumps or zero emission boilers and things that don't rely on gas. Equally, occasionally boilers and gas does explode, so you've got that issue as well. So I felt very, very strongly for a whole range of reasons that electrification would win. And I've been fighting that battle or trying to persuade people to that effect for well over 20 years. So that was how I began. And it's been really, really interesting to see things progress around the world. And sometimes I feel like we've made the most enormous progress. And other times I feel like I can't believe it's gone so slowly as well. So it's a great industry, and I really enjoyed working in it. When I left that job, actually, I set up my own business, and I was running something called the Renewables Roadshow. So I was really kind of pushing renewables. This is almost 20 years ago, so pretty previous, I suppose, pretty early. And really enjoyed that. And I also did some consulting for Department of Energy and Climate Change when they launched the Renewable Heat Incentive. So I was in that world from very, very early on. And I guess a key moment for me, Liz, was one of my clients said, it's very good that you're promoting heat pumps and solar and such like, but you can't drive around in that for much longer then, can you? And pointed to my Audi as it was then. And I hadn't really given it that much consideration. I was it was sort of early sort of 2010, 2011, that sort of time, and there weren't
Yeah.
many electric vehicles out at that point in time. I was aware of Tesla and what was going on there, and I found that fascinating, but particularly from a battery perspective. And then quite early on, I got an electric vehicle, and that I think it was about 2015. I got my first electric vehicle, and that fundamentally changed things for me. And a lot of the last 10 years for me have been about electric vehicles as well as electrification of other technologies.
So what did you, right, so where did you move into a Tesla then back
No, I
then? Or
didn't.
what was
No, I
it?
didn't. No, I remember it well actually. I was working at the BRE has a fantastic sustainable sort of building lab and different buildings in Watford, and I was there for work, and I was really quite interested in electric vehicle. But I was also coming up against I guess how expensive is it going to be? That was my prime consideration. And so I was looking into that, and I had, I wasn't the sole decision maker in my household, so I was looking at electric car, and I was thinking, yeah, I want one. I know I want one, but how do I convince my other half? And actually, at that, there was a demonstrator with some vehicles and also with a cost calculator. It's really boring, but it really was a spreadsheet that sold it to my other half. And I actually went to her and said, actually, well, the car itself is probably a little bit more expensive than a comparative car, but actually if you look at the running costs, I think it's going to be sort of the same running cost, total cost of ownership, or maybe even less, and that convinced her. So then we got our first electric car. So that was a BMW i3, if you remember those,
Yeah.
and that was back in 2015, and I absolutely loved it, and it completely transformed. I was already pretty, I guess, interested in tech anyway, and obviously clearly interested in cleaner energy. But
Yeah.
that really was a light bulb moment for me. As soon as I got in that, I thought, well, what's all the fuss about? These are great. Why wouldn't you want to do this? So I've been trying to get people to join that cause ever since.
Good on you. And I was going to say, I was going to bring this up a bit later actually, but you do love a bit of a rant as well, don't you? On LinkedIn, which I
Yeah,
love. I love it when
yeah.
you kind of, that I was going to talk about misinformation, and all the and I always talk about this on the podcast, but actually I love it when I see some of your rants. They're so true, and it's kind of like, just come on everybody, what are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, it is quite odd, isn't it, to look at information and the way it's shared now. We used to have a day or a time when I can remember, there only being 3 TV channels, and then I remember
Yeah,
excitement of a fourth one being added, and
I remember that.
you got all your news really from 4 TV sources, maybe from a handful of radio stations, and maybe from the newspapers as well. That was the way
Yeah,
it was back in the day, and yet now everyone has a platform. Some people
yeah.
don't necessarily use it, but everyone has a platform, and obviously, in many ways, that's been extremely liberating. But by the same token, as well, it just means that um, the requirement to think critically when you see information is more important than ever. So I read something this morning. I can't remember what the story was, but my first thought is always, is that true? That's my first thought
Yeah,
now when I read things, and
yeah,
I actually end up reading stuff and then going into it and looking at things when things are true before I even react. And I guess a lot of people will be cynical in that respect, and it is very dangerous. And lots of people are quite happy to put misinformation out there, either deliberately or not. And obviously the subject of electric vehicles in particular, heat pumps, etc. They've become lightning rod, haven't they, for um, negative comments, even by people who've never driven them or
oh,
never lived with them, and it's extremely
exactly.
frustrating. So we've been
Yeah,
able to. I guess we're not a corporate, so we've been able to speak a bit more freely than some organisations. So Robert and I have done that occasionally, spoken about misinformation, and we will continue to do so. But yeah, I'm growing up and getting a bit older, so trying to mind my time occasionally. But I mean, generally speaking, I think people do appreciate that someone is sort of is talking about these things openly.
and actually a lot of it is about people taking advantage now, isn't it? They're taking advantage of the fact that it's open. Social media is open to everybody, and just like you said then, I talked to my 19-year-old about the fact that please double check your sources of information. Don't just assume that what you're reading in one place is right, it's true. always back it up, and a lot of people don't, and that's where we get into trouble, isn't it? Because actually these people are taking advantage, and they're taking the mickey, really, and sort of like, the things that they're kind of pressing in. Everybody just seems to still think that it's true. I'm not saying everybody, sorry, a lot of people seem to think that the misinformation that's out there, they don't know any different. So all the stuff that you're doing with Fully Charged and Electric Vehicles UK, it's about getting that truth, pushing the truth rather than, and countering the negatives.
It's a real challenge, and as we speak here now, there's been a presidential election in the US, and there's a new old man coming into power.
Just
47th president
Yeah.
who will be inaugurated in January, and the reality is that a lot of what he says, let's take his election campaign for example, may prove to be untrue. I suspect a lot of what he said will be untrue, but people are just happy to believe him, and I find it quite interesting that they will happily sort of just believe that because it's expedient to them. And so we have let it into our politics, misinformation. We've absolutely let it into our media. And it's very, very difficult. As you say, the best thing you can be armed with is that ability to think critically and check your sources. So even these days, what we try to do is obviously bring the facts to the surface. But then amazing how often you even get people saying, well, those facts, they're false, and so on and so forth. So it is a difficult time to operate. And I think there's a great quote which I will probably get wrong, but a lot of people say history is written by the victors, right? And so you might see a history book is written by someone, and actually their account becomes the reality of what happened, even though actually it might not have been completely true. Well, we're seeing that now in real time. People are actually just shaping the narrative as they see fit before history has even judged it. So it's going to be an issue, and it's why we are really stepping up our activities around misinformation in particular. We do think it has had quite a significant dampening effect on uptake of the technologies that we care about.
I totally agree, and I've talked about this before. I actually have personal friends who have been reading things, and they think that kind of a lot of the stuff that's out there with regards, especially with regard to electric vehicles, is true. And and it's really difficult, because we've got to try and it's balancing that sort of not being too evangelical or patronizing, and actually just kind of I think I realized that showing people that these things are easy is better than just kind of going, oh well, blah 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 blah, and getting all Ponzi and all that kind of thing. Actually sitting with them and just we've got a used Hyundai Ioniq. People have heard me talk about this a lot, and sitting in, getting people to sit in the car and just driving it and chatting to them and just going for a charging experience and things like that, and trying not to just let it work and let them see it works. It's not always perfect, do you know what I mean? But just a way of trying to win people. I'm saying win people over, and that's not the right phrase, but you know what I mean.
I mean, I think from my perspective, we, as an early EV driver who spends a lot of time with Robert Llewellyn, who also is an even earlier EV driver, we have fallen in the trap of being evangelical about technology. And that's natural, because actually we just couldn't believe we were getting in these cars, and they were great and they were easy to operate, and actually they had a lot of benefits over combustion engine vehicles, and we couldn't believe that people just couldn't see it for themselves. So we became more incredulous and probably more shrill and hysterical. Why can't you see this? More evangelical. And actually the reality is that won over the other early adopters and the pioneers, so the brave people who went first, that kind of convinced them. But if you want to win the heads of the early mainstream, you have to be very balanced, fact-based. You have to be able to say, actually, there are some minor drawbacks. We think they're pretty minor, but you have to be transparent about that. But as you say, there's no substitute for actually getting someone in one of the cars and letting them drive one, for example, if you're talking about electric vehicles. So, yeah, giving people the ability to see it for themselves and not be told, because people don't like being
Yeah.
told,
No.
is the right thing to do. So, we've modified our approach over the years, but yeah, we certainly, from my point of view, still to this day, I'm still shocked that people don't understand. I think for me it's very logical if you look at what's happening, the way the cars are made versus the way combustion cars are made, the way you don't burn the fuel to the air, etc., etc. To me, it's very logical that actually, of course, these are cleaner. It doesn't mean that cars are clean. It doesn't mean that having a bicycle isn't better. Obviously, it is, or fewer vehicles are better. But if we could at least replace most of the vehicles we have now with electric vehicles, that would be a huge step forward for clean air, for climate, and just people would just have a better experience. The tech is just better, and that's why way over 9 out of 10 people don't go back once they've got an electric vehicle.
Yeah, and I think maybe even the ones that do go back, it's partly because of the fact that maybe they didn't really they weren't onboarded properly, and actually it's that kind of understanding, it's that piece of information, about the experience being passed on to that person in the right way, with all the information around regenerative braking, about charging, about all the different terms and all the terminology we have. It's kind of breaking that down and really making it simple. I'm not wanting to be patronizing to anybody, but to me it's about kind of, right, okay, all the terminologies that we've got, out rapids and ultra rapids, and people don't give a monkeys about that. They just want to know how quick their car's going to charge. So to me it's kind of, actually everybody providing that information, so people can see this. It's an overall picture, but it's through various kind of segments, isn't it? It's kind of from the manufacturer to the dealerships to any lease companies to the guy who was selling me the used EV, and also me doing my own research. That's kind of where we get it from. That's how I feel. That's where we should get it from.
Well, consistency is going to be the key. As you said, mentioned a few different things there, but certainly from my point of view, if you were getting a business to run efficiently, for example, you need a clear mission statement, and then you need leadership, and you need process, and you need a structure to that business, and then you need to communicate well. As an industry, we've all been doing our own thing largely, I think, and so as an industry, the reason behind Electric Vehicles UK, which we formed in September, really is to try and work to bring industry together, to talk in the same way, to help each other. So there's a real framework and structure, which does not mean duplicating existing efforts, because there's some incredible work going on out there, but it is effectively to get us all together and say, look, actually, if we communicate consistently together, we find out what works, we tweak that, we can really start to bring more of the kind of mass market on board with EVs. Now, I think it's sometimes counterproductive to get, and forgive this phrase because it is marketing speak, but to bring a laggard or someone from the late mainstream into an EV when they're not ready. I think actually it could do you a disservice, because they just, as you say, they're just not ready. You kind of force them into it quickly, and maybe they are the 1 in 20 people who might go back, for example. So actually it's looking for those people in that early mainstream who maybe quite tech savvy, maybe they're a bit more environmentally aware, maybe they want to change their car if the timing's right, whatever the reasons, finding that group of people, not seeing everyone as one big monolithic block, is really, really important. So from my point of view, it's always been, well, it's not always been, but more recently it's communications challenge. As Robert and I have said consistently, it's not technology now. That technology is great, it's the psychology bit, and that's where I think we'll be working, persuading, cajoling, whatever tactic it takes people for another 10, 15 years for sure.
So you've personally been, from through your own career, you've kind of been on a journey to where you are with Electric Vehicles UK. Can I just go back a step, because I want to actually focus, where you are with Electric Vehicles UK, of course, but then there's obviously that background piece of, how did you meet Robert Llewellyn? How did you meet him? What was it that kind of brought you to kind of set up, fully charged? You know, I know that he was running a YouTube channel anyway, wasn't he? And that was, I think that was that what it was called initially?
Yeah, no, it was really amazing. I was at an industry event yesterday, and I hadn't seen a few of the people there for a little while, and so we were a bit reminiscing about sort of how it all started. And there's been quite a lot of churn in the industry, quite a lot of faces I know really well. I've known them for a decade. I've worked with 2 or 3 or 4 different companies in that time, because it's a nascent space. It's early stage, isn't it? Some companies make it, some don't. That's perfectly normal. And my journey was, I'd been doing my own thing, running events around the country, all about renewables. I was still in the process of trying to promote those things. And one of the slight frustrations I had was, quite often I found it was industry talking to industry, and we'd all be there. Oh, batteries are great, aren't they? They're the future, and electric cars are great. They're the future, and so on and so forth. And I was absolutely adamant that we've got to find a way to
Break out.
talk to consumers and do it in an engaging, educational, entertaining way. And then I kind of stumbled across Fully Charged on YouTube, which had existed for 6 years. And
Yes.
I knew of Robert, but I don't tell anyone, but I didn't really watch. I didn't watch Scrap Heap, and I had watched a bit of Red Dwarf, maybe.
I won't
That
tell him, I
wasn't what
promise.
No. That wasn't what I found interesting about Robert. I found what he was doing with Fully Charged absolutely fascinating, because I thought he's cracked it. He's actually able to communicate on these, what can be made to be quite complicated technologies. He's made it simple and fun. And I have spent most of my adult life working with engineers, and let's be completely frank, without engineers the world wouldn't work. But they do have a habit of going into the weeds and talking about the details, and maybe they're not always the best people to actually sort of, I guess, sell the idea of the product, sell the concept. And so Robert had set up Fully Charged in 2010, so almost 15 years ago now. We met, and I think it had about 60,000 subscribers. And we met at an event.
That's still not bad, is it?
No, it's good. I mean, it's done amazingly well.
Yeah.
We met at the Science Museum. I was running an event, and I asked him to compare it. And we met, and I'd watched it, and I thought it's just sort of TV standard. And I made some assumptions about how big his operation might be. And I said, well, how many people have you got? And all the rest of it. And it basically was, I think, him plus a very talented creative director, editor, and then half another person who would do the sort of the production. That was it. And I said, well, how do you make money? And he said, well, I don't. So that was how it all began. And I think people should look at the business now, and it is a fair bit bigger now. But Robert really just poured his own money and passion into that project. Anyway, we met, and I'm not backwards in coming forwards. I said, I think I can help you. I think I've got the business experience. I was passionate about the products as well, and I guess communication is something I'm very passionate about too. We just met, and we struck it off. Anyone who knows him, he's a lovely guy, and he's been
lovely,
incredibly gracious with me, and he's let me do what I do, which is, I guess, build the business out, build a framework. And so we've got sort of long-term sustainable business now, both the YouTube channels. We've got 2 channels, as you're probably aware, Fully Charged and Everything Electric, and then also the events around the world, and making them sustainable in the long term, and obviously Electric Vehicles UK being the latest project.
So if we look at the impact of all of this that you've done, and the fact that the live events, I'm going to go back a step. The YouTube channel now has got over a million subscribers, hasn't it? So it's gone from your 60,000 to over 1 million subscribers. And then, like you said, you've got Everything Electric. That I can't even remember the numbers for everything electric, but it's all just grown arms and legs and everything, hasn't it? And then so it makes sense to actually be concentrating on the next phase, which is, as you said, Electric Vehicles UK. At what point did you kind of recognise that needed to be the next step?
Well, I mean, there was a couple of dynamics at play, really. We had, been very transparent about the fact that YouTube doesn't pay the bills. So, the reason behind the live events and Robert and I started to discuss that in 2017, was that we somehow need to grow the YouTube channel, so we need to find a way of funding it, and events felt like the best way to do it, because we want to, we had the digital community, but actually people wanted to meet up, and they wanted to test drive the cars and talk about the tech, so that was a logical extension, and that was successful. We've done 17 of those around the world, but it does take a little while to work out, iron out any kinks in that to make it better, and we now have a great team that run YouTube channels and a great team that run the events around the world as well. So we had some success, and I'm very proud of what we've achieved, but there was always a little bit of a sense that we're still not quite in the mainstream. And really, if these technologies are to take off, we've got to play our part in doing that. And I guess we probably, when you've put out something like 2,000 videos and you've run 17 large-scale events around the world, you've learned quite a lot through that process. What works in terms of the thumbnails for the episodes, for example, and the packaging of those episodes, and which bits do people watch, and when do people switch off, where are they watching it, what's the duration, all that sort of stuff. So we had ingested a huge amount of information. Same with the live events, how many test drives we were doing, etc. And we felt that we were pretty well placed, I think, to help industry take the messaging out to consumers. So it became bigger than our business alone. It became about how do we take the whole industry out to the consumer marketplace. So about a year and a half ago, we started to see misinformation ramp up really, really, really quickly. We felt that it was hurting the UK market in particular. Actually, our Australian business is much faster growing than our UK business, ironically.
Is it?
Our Canada business is a bit stronger as well, because it's all economics, politics, sentiment, all these things come into play. And the UK market has been a bit flatter. I mean, there's no two ways around it. I think we're on the beginning of a better phase, and I'm pretty optimistic about 2025, in fact. But that's the reality. But we felt misinformation was playing quite a big role in that. And we just didn't feel that we could stay outside that and not get involved in that. So we started something called Stop Burning Stuff, which was a Patreon page for EV drivers to contribute funds so that we could start to tackle misinformation. And as we started to do it, Liz, we realised the size and the scale of the mountain in front of us was a lot bigger, a lot bigger than we realised. And so we really became aware that we needed to get the industry involved and companies involved. So I've been working on Stop Burning Stuff with fantastic Quentin Wilson, and now we've obviously launched Electric Vehicles UK in the last couple of months, which is about getting the whole of the industry together, and providing that kind of structure, that kind of framework for the industry to work together more efficiently, more effectively, but also to really help with that consumer interface, because I think there are loads of trade associations out there, magazines, podcasts, YouTube channels, car companies, charger companies, all the other companies, organisations that make this industry work. But I think between them, they don't necessarily know how to engage with the consumer. And I think that's, like it or not, that's something we've got quite a lot of experience about. So we felt we could help the whole industry, I guess, promote itself better. And so Electric Vehicles UK is going to do that, and we've got some very, very exciting plans, and I really think we can make a big difference. And we've had an incredible 2 months I've had in terms of the welcome that we've had from the industry for this initiative.
Do you want to just give me a bit of information, Dan, about what you would like to happen with Electric Vehicles UK? What is the long-term aim for it?
I mean, I think the reality is that we want to build out something that helps industry communicate with consumers. The reality is, at the moment, if you wanted to buy an electric vehicle, for example, Liz, and you went to Google, you could end up with all manner of information. You could end up going somewhere that's giving you accurate information, or you could end up going down a wormhole of misinformation. In fact, there's probably more misinformation out there than correct information. So we are effectively working to bring industry together so we can all kind of join up on that. So there will be like a central website, a central online destination, and it won't just be fully charge show content on there. It just won't be just video on there. It will be everything you can think of, from video to podcast to news, to data-driven stuff, and we will be working with all other YouTubers, all other content creators.
Hi.
To bring, yes,
I'm
exactly.
here.
To bring
Over
to
here.
bring to bring all of that content into one place. So, if at Christmas, Liz, you were sat there and you were starting to talk about electric vehicles to someone, one of your nearest and dearest, and they maybe were a bit sceptical, you have the ability to say, no, it's all here. Industry has put it all here for you. It's all in one place. So, I think by dint of the fact that all of our partners, whether it's, I don't know, the AA or Tesla or Octopus, whoever it is, can all say, this is where you go to stay current, or this is where you go to find out about electric vehicles and clean energy more generally, will be a really, really big moment. So that's one of the things we're working on. That website will be up and running before Christmas. That's the plan. But in addition to that, we're also doing public affairs work, so we're trying to influence politicians. Obviously, the zero emission vehicle mandate is a very live issue as we speak, so we're trying to positively influence the outcome of that. We have a rapid response group to deal with misinformation as well. So we want to get on the front foot and start talking about the benefits of battery electric vehicles. There are lots of benefits, but we also feel that we need to clear away some of the rubble and the misinformation, and therefore we will have a response group that will respond in just a matter of a few hours to each negative story that goes out. We can't do them all because the size of the team and the size of the challenge. So we're focusing really on the main newspapers, the main places like BBC, Channel 4, etc. If we see some misinformation, we want to be able to respond to it. We want to go back to the journalists who started the misinformation and very politely kind of educate them, because it's not always deliberate. Sometimes they just don't know the subject matter as well as you or I might. And we want to then prevent that story from viralising and being repeated elsewhere, which is quite a common theme. And then we want to cascade out our response to that story to the industry and to drivers, so they're armed with the facts and they can tackle that. So there's also going to be an EV drivers group as well, so EV drivers can get in the comments on the Daily Mail, should they so wish, or YouTube, and actually say, no, that's not my experience. My experience of electric cars has been great, and I know they don't catch fire. In fact, they catch fire 20 times less likely to catch fire than a combustion engine vehicle, etc., etc. So arming industry with those sorts of facts, having the website. We'll also be doing Quentin Wilson has done a great thing, which is trying to unlock the voices of the EV drivers. So that's the Voices in the Million campaign. Obviously, there's over 1 million EV drivers in the UK. We want to get them on camera as much as possible, whether it's on YouTube Shorts or TikTok or Instagram, wherever it may be. We want to actually get their lived experience out there into the world as well. We're running an open source advertising campaign. We firmly believe that actually, while there is some quite good electric vehicle car advertising out there nowadays, we firmly believe that a generic sort of brand agnostic campaign where we all get together and you get the right messages across will be powerful. And so we're running an open source advertising campaign. So on the Fully Charged show, I'll be recording an episode soon where we put it out on the Fully Charged show, and we'll be asking all creators, all people within the industry, kids as well. We want you to create the best possible battery electric vehicle advert you can, and we will get, I think, a huge amount of submissions for that, and we want them in. They could do them in a poster if they want, the kids, or they can do them in a video or a short video, long form video, graphics, whatever they want. And we'll announce some winners in the new year. But all the winning content will be made available to industry to use. So we're really looking forward to doing that as well. We will be running a national test drive event, Electric Vehicles UK roadshow as well, to get to the bits beyond our Farnborough and London shows. So we will be running Everything Electric London in April and Everything Electric South in October, but in between that there will be a roadshow that will go out into the wider country, and we'll go to shopping centres as well, because we want to be able to talk to people who might not be quite as imminent as the Fully Charged Everything Electric audience. We are going to do events for different stakeholders as well. So the first one we're going to do is for politicians. A lot of politicians that are making decisions about electric vehicles, they don't actually drive.
I know. Or don't know. They don't know. They
So,
just know
and
what
that's
they
not-
read, don't they?
And they're very sensible. They don't drive. I think that's absolutely great, of course. But then, of course, they don't necessarily easily understand the topic. Same with their special advisors. So we're doing an event for them. We're also looking to do events for press, for lifestyle influencers. Every different group really. I'm sure we'll want to do something with dealers at some point as well. And then industry-wise, we'll be getting industry together once every quarter as well, so that we can all kind of better kind of understand what each other are doing and collaborate. So there's about a 9 point action plan that's going into effect now. Another team has started. I think you'll start to see some activity in December in particular, and then next year we think we can really ramp it up. And as I say, my creativity is really being unlocked now. We have quite a few other plans and ideas for next year, but we do think what plays to our advantage is it certainly would be if a ZEV mandate is stated explicitly by government, and someone stands on a podium and says that would certainly help. Obviously, hopefully, economically, the UK will start to be in a slightly stronger position. But what really helps now is with used EVs and with more affordable EVs coming through, is the democratisation of electric vehicles looks like more of a possibility. A lot of the car companies, and I think it's sort of natural the way it's happened, a lot of them have created quite expensive electric cars. And they haven't, and by that I just mean they've chosen to, make their brands more premium.
Yes.
And that's the way they've started. I think, in fact, even some of them are terrified of having a high volume, more affordable EV, and so that now is coming. We know that there are some amazing used EV deals now out there. That market's growing very fast, but we also know there are a lot more affordable EVs have come into the market this year, and we know there's quite a few more coming next year. And I think that will be different. That will really make a big difference, because up until now, if you think about it, a very large percentage of the population maybe don't have a driveway, so they think they can't have an EV, even though they can, or maybe they just can't afford a car of 25 grand plus. That locks out I would say the majority of the market. So the fact that EV growth has been as robust as it has been is actually pretty amazing. The growth figures we're seeing around the world are very encouraging. There are a few markets that are down. There are a few markets that are flattened, but most markets are still growing actually, and that's the reality. The UK is quite unusual because we've had almost like a perfect storm. We've had a slightly tricky political situation. We've had economic issues. We've had a lot of misinformation as well. But the reality is, a car is a very expensive purchase, and we have seen there's 3 ways you could buy an EV really at present, one of which is used, and that market is suddenly there. There's lots of used EVs out there. They're actually incredibly good value, and I think about 4 out of 5 cars sold in the UK is used. So that's actually that's a huge solution that's right there right now. And then for new car buyers, which is a much smaller percentage, we talk a lot about salary sacrifice and being able to get a car through your company. And then there's the private buyer. And the private buyer, and the fact that there aren't that many private buyers, is the story, the narrative that's being told at the moment. But obviously, as I've just said, 4 out of 5 car sales in the UK are anyway used. Yes. Yeah. And the private buyer bit is being used as a bit of private buyers aren't interested. But if you looked at the options, if you were going to buy an electric car right now and you looked at the 3 options, I'll buy one private new, I'll get my company to get me one through salary sacrifice, or I'll buy used. Of course, everyone are going to go for those last 2, aren't they? Not many people are going to go private buyer at the moment. So the demand is growing. Actually, the last 6 months of sales figures have been pretty good in the UK, and we're pretty optimistic about 2025, but we certainly feel that electric vehicles UK can play a positive role. And I guess there's just so much talent in the industry really trying to do the right thing and make it happen. And I've even this week been in with Department for Transport talking to them, and it's really reminded me this week that the passion and the talent of the people in the EV industry is incredible.
It is amazing. It is amazing. I'm going to finish off by asking you what would your dream be? What would it look like? For you, because I know you're the launch CEO of Electric Vehicles UK, aren't you? What do you want to see happening over? Obviously you've got your plans, but the ideal situation for the UK, what would you want that to look like?
I think with electric vehicles specifically, the zero emission vehicle mandate is asking manufacturers to have 22% of their cars sold by the end of this year be pure electric. Now, we're not quite going to make that I think it's going to be more like 18, 19% across the piece. And obviously, you've got some organisations like Tesla doing 100%, where they're picking up quite a lot of the slack. Then there are some manufacturers who have achieved it. So BMW, for example, have done quite well. They're going to hit that target. You've got others that are close enough for it not to be a disaster. I don't think it's it's a pretty good effort, and I think there'll be some sensible conversations about fines, etc. And then there's a few that are well off the pace. And the reality is that ratchet mechanism is supposed to go up to 28% by the end of next year. And I would love to get to the end of next year, and for not just electric vehicles, but the industry as a whole to have just flicked a bit of a switch, gone into a higher gear to be able to communicate with the consumers, so that 28% becomes a reality next year, and so that the narrative becomes much more positive. No, the ZEV mandate is having an impact. We are able to hit these targets, giving the industry confidence to really get hard behind it. It's an incredibly difficult time to work for a car company. I have a lot of sympathy, but and a lot of car companies are super progressive. They're going electric, no doubt about it. A couple of others aren't. But putting your head in the sand and being an ostrich is a recipe for disaster. You cannot, you cannot just live in a silo. And the world is going on, and China, and I would say Korea as well. They're making amazing cars, and so you have to respond to that. You can't pretend it's not happening. So I hope by the end of next year we will be in a position where the mood feels very different, and the attitude towards EVs is generally much more positive, because we've pushed down some of this misinformation, and we've got on the front foot, and we're starting to talk about the benefits of electric vehicles.
Brilliant. And I'm just gonna say this. The other thing is, you can't just chuck a load of tariffs on EVs and hope that manufacturer or that country is going to go away and stop doing what they're going to do, because if you do that, that's not going to help at all, is it?
The tariffs, I think as we've been saying, bizarrely, with post-Brexit, we're not part of the EU, so we don't have to do that, and I would advise us not to do that. I think it's an opportunity for us to, the UK is a big car market for both, cars that we make and use here, and cars we export as well. I think it's actually a very, 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 very big advantage. And I'd love to see every single car company survive. I would, but realistically, it's going to be tough for some of them. There's no two ways around it. But if, let's say, for example, one of the car companies that set up shop here and has done great business here does get smaller, or worse still, has a real problem over the next few years, as a country, I would probably be trying to get some of the Chinese and the Koreans to actually make their cars here really as well, as a hedge against that, and hopefully we might come out with a bigger car industry. We don't really own those companies anyway. We haven't. Even JLR is Indian owned. So, but for more jobs, to have a healthy import-export car business would be in the UK. Car industry in the UK would be fantastic. So, yeah, I think it is happening. The world is changing. We need to accept that, and I actually think UK could come out of it stronger. I think there's a few countries that could come out of it stronger. Australia, we spend a lot of time out there. I think they're recognising that there's a huge opportunity here, and I would urge the UK to see this as an opportunity as well, and not as a threat.
Absolutely. Right. I'm just going to say thank you ever so much. It's
pleasure.
been a really wonderful conversation. You're doing such excellent work. Keep on doing this, because otherwise it's going to be, I don't envy you in some ways, trying to get everybody pulling it all together, because that is not a totally easy job. It is kind of, you've got businesses that are going off and doing their own thing and trying to get them all in and on board, but we all need to be singing from the same hymn sheet. So thank you for kind of moving this in that direction, Dan, you and the team, and Robert, and I just think it's really a really brilliant thing that you're doing, so thank you.
Well, it's our absolute pleasure. It's been really, really fantastic to talk to you today.
So I'm going to end by just saying, again, thanks, Dan, and also to you that are listening and watching, please, as I've said to you at the end of all of the episodes now, the way that we can actually increase the knowledge of people, that get them to hear the truth, is by sharing. And actually, you take a look at Fully Charged, take a look at everything electric, and share this podcast as well with as many people as you can. Comment, like, subscribe, do all of that, because that's the only way these algorithms are going to pick it up. So on that note, again, thanks, Dan. I really, really appreciate your time. And to everybody else listening and watching, I shall see you next time. Thanks. Bye-bye. Thank you for watching Electric Evolution. I really love bringing you these weekly conversations about sustainability, renewables, and building a cleaner future together. If you're passionate about positive change, please like, subscribe, and share with others who also care about these topics. You can also download our white paper, Plugging into the Future, at fullcircleci.co.uk and join the discussion on improving sustainable transport, or email me at liz@fullcircleci.co.uk. Thanks for watching. Bye.